Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and I believe that all readers should read children's literature, especially adults. So that's what we do on the Kid Lit Love podcast. We celebrate all things children's literature, picture books, early readers, middle grade, and young adult novels too. Whether you're an adult reading to your inner child or connecting the young readers in your lives with fantastic books, you've come to the right place. Each week, we'll talk to a different children's literature author and discuss their books, their hopes and dreams for readers, their writing process, and much, much more. So, grab a notebook to build your TBR, and let's get to today's episode of Kid Lit Love. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Kid Lit Love podcast. I'm Stephanie, here today with a quick introduction to today's guest. So here on the podcast, we've had some amazing opportunities to talk to a wide variety of authors. We've talked to established authors with double digits of books under their belt. We've talked to newer authors with just a couple to share. We've talked to authors who are coming to talk about their backlist books, and then other authors coming to talk about their newest releases. But I have found that I have a special place in my reading and podcasting heart for debut authors. They're enthusiastic, the energy is so high, and I just feel so blessed to share in their bookish joy and their journey of bringing it to the world. That's why I am so excited today to talk to today's guest. Marisa is here to talk about her debut picture book, Happy Hands. It is a delightful, lovable picture book about a young boy who's eager to meet friends at his first day of kindergarten, only to find out that his happy hands may make that a little bit more challenging than he thought. It's one of those books that I think Dr. Bishop would say is a mirror because some kids will feel seen. It's a window because other kids will see a different perspective. And it's certainly a sliding glass door because we can all be changed and our future actions could be changed as a result of reading this book. So I am so excited to welcome Marisa to the podcast. Marisa, welcome to Kid Lit Love. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And I think you kind of summed up my book perfectly.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'm especially excited because we're here talking about your debut picture book, but this is also your debut podcast, right? Your
Yeah. So I'm so excited to be here for both of them.
It makes me so excited. I'm so grateful to be part of your journey, literally right from the beginning.
Yeah, no, it's been a wild journey for sure, but I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for this book to finally come out just because it's been such a huge work in progress. I've learned so much, but yeah, definitely excited to see where this takes me.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start at the beginning? Why don't you tell us a little bit about you? Because, on the podcast, some listeners might know the author, some might not. But since your debut picture book and your debut podcast, I'm certain they're going to hear of a new author today. So why don't you tell them a little bit about you and your work and what led you to want to write a picture book like this?
Yeah, so oh goodness. So where do I begin? So when I was in high school, I worked a little bit with kids with autism, kind of through like a peer-to-peer program, and then also too within my home ec classes. I really liked my home ec teacher. I took all of her classes. So by the time I was a senior, there wasn't really even classes left for me. They were kind of basically making me like courses. So like I was basically in like fashion and fabrics level 6. So or baking level like 5, things like that. So I just kind of became like almost like a teacher's aide. I was super close with the teachers for our special education program, and then also to this case specifically. I don't know if she's going to listen to this. I hope she does. But so within that, I worked alongside a lot of the kids with autism or just other disabilities. And that kind of like sparked my interest in like working within this population. Went off to Grand Valley in the west side of the state. Liked my time there. Thought I was going to go to nursing school. Thought I was going to do PA, something very, very medical. And then moved home after graduation. It was kind of like, I don't know if that's 1000% what my heart is still set on. So I ended up working at an ABA clinic, working specifically with kids with autism. It was like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. It kind of gives me like that nostalgia of what I did in high school, but then also kind of gave me the new perspective of, helping build lives, change lives, kind of more of like I don't want to say teaching, but more of like the psych background of how behavior and everything manifests and then changes, and how to kind of go about positive change and positive practice to change behaviors. So that's kind of where I got my start with everything. I've always liked writing ever since like I remember being in like middle school and getting like a new notebook and just writing little stories and starting stories, and whether they were goofy or more serious or kind of similar tone to books that I was reading back then. I just always was scribbling things down. So definitely have always had an interest in writing. Never thought that I'd actually write a book and have it be published, but here we are. Never say never.
Right.
But I just remember during COVID, when I was finishing up grad school to be a BCBA, so a board certified behavior analyst, I kept writing like this book about this kid with autism. And obviously, most of my work is with kids with autism. And so this was just kind of, just something on my heart, especially because I feel like there are a ton of books about individuals with ASD. So for me, it was kind of more of like a passion project, but then it just kind of grew and grew into, hey, like, let me actually publish this thing. So yeah, here we are, about a month out from release date. So very excited.
That's exciting. So
Yeah.
I was a notebooker too. I'm always struck by when authors come on, a lot of them have this notebooking addiction, or there's always a
Yeah.
notebook close by, or there's stories that have been collected
Yeah.
over the years that have just kept their love of writing high for themselves. And then, depending on where and when they are in their career, they either get brave enough or decide to
Yeah.
put that out to the world. And another thing I'm realizing on the podcast too that you mentioned is COVID gave a lot of authors the chance to just have a go at something, or maybe the courage to do
Yeah.
it in a world of uncertainty. So I love that both of those things kind of
Yeah.
came together for you, and then you
Yeah.
wrote this story. It seems like a story that almost you wrote for your kids, right? For the students
Yeah.
that you work with.
Yeah. It's kind of like it was meant to be. So a lot of people with in my background, we write a lot of like social stories for kids. So it was kind of like a blend of a social story about, kids who have the hand flapping behavior, like Odin does in the book, but then also to kind of almost like marries into a social story for kids to befriend kids with autism. So it's kind of almost like taking my background and producing it in a way that is both applicable to the population that I work with, but then also the outside population, and kind of inviting them in to kind of take a deeper look at autism and, how can we kind of go about a more positive outlook and becoming friends with a lot of these kids.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in the introduction, that's really what jumped out at me. I mean, as a lover of
Mm-hmm.
picture books, as someone who reads picture books to kids who have
Yeah.
in education, I know the power of books to help students see themselves and to know that other kids are like them or go through the same situations like them. But I
Yeah.
also know just how powerful those books are for kids to read books that aren't like them, or give them a glimpse into other situations that other kids might face, and build that empathy and that
Yeah.
understanding. So I think you're right. I mean, there's a place for every reader in
Yes.
this book, no matter who they
Absolutely.
are coming to it. So why don't you give us, I know I gave a little overview in the beginning, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about the book and this adorably lovable character?
Yeah. So, just yeah. So Odin is a kid with autism. He hand flaps. He's excited to go off to kindergarten. He kind of recognizes that he is a little bit different, and his hope is to make friends. So, there's a little bit of some bullying going on, and how to overcome and befriending kids. Just in general. So for him, it's just kind of like this story of him getting kind of bullied, befriending this one girl, and then him and this girl having so much fun that now everybody kind of wants to be their friend, and now Odin's kind of the cool kid on the block. So I think it definitely sends that message of like, it's cool to be different. one of the biggest things I think my parents always taught me is it takes a friend to be a friend, and I'm pretty sure I have that written in the book itself. So it's just one of those little messages of just, being true to yourself, and it'll get you a lot farther than not being true to yourself. So
And Odin, oh my gosh, he's happy. He's happy
yeah,
and enthusiastic, and you can feel it. You can see it
yeah,
in the pictures. He's so eager, to go to school. And then, typical school things happen where
yeah,
maybe someone else doesn't appreciate your eagerness
right,
or your unique kinds of characteristics,
yeah,
which is why I loved Clementine.
yeah,
Oh, I loved Clementine, the nice girl, so to speak, that
yes,
decided to befriend him, and how perfectly with dinosaurs
yes,
as the theme that kind of brought their connection, which made that happy hand behavior be ideal, right? As
yeah.
they're playing around. So I loved that piece of it. Is that from your work with kids? Is that how you wanted to kind of make that seamless connection?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah. So definitely, I think there's obviously kids with autism tend to hyperfixate on something. So this Odin is hyperfixated on like dinosaurs, which like I love dinosaurs. I've always liked dinosaurs. So I think that this is kind of like a cool little element to tie, just a little bit of myself, a little bit of my work, and then obviously just kind of tie the story together and connect everything. But I definitely think with the hand flapping behavior, and then just dinosaurs in general. You see dinosaurs fly around, they chase each other, just all of like the little kids play back and forth. I think that this all kind of just like is it marries everything together very beautifully for sure.
It did. It definitely
Thank
did.
you.
And as you mentioned, the book is, it has a couple of themes, at least from my point of view.
Yeah,
That big one of just being who you are and staying true to who
yeah,
you are, and that being okay. No
yeah,
matter what that is, it is okay. But I also loved that you had some other perspectives, which is maybe from Clementine's perspective, the little girl we just mentioned, about
yeah,
how to be a friend, how to reach
yeah,
out to someone, but then also Penelope's perspective,
yeah,
which is how to maybe come around and learn and say you're
yeah,
sorry and grow. So I really
yeah,
love that full circleness you had. It wasn't just, a mean bully and Odin had to figure things out and be saved by another friend. It came back full circle where
right.
this other character learned and grew as a result. I loved that.
Yeah, thank you. And that was a big point that I wanted to make is, it's okay to make mistakes and grow from them. Like that's part of the human experience. And I think that that's just a super helpful message to kind of teach kids who, maybe at one point weren't super kind about certain things, that there's always a way to come back from something like that and grow and kind of be a more positive human being if you so choose to be.
I think that's a good adult lesson too, Marissa.
Yes, absolutely. As I was saying that, I was like, I think a lot of adults I know can also learn from this too. So I think
Yeah.
it's a good, even though it's a picture book meant for kids, I think it's also super helpful for adults too. So
Absolutely. And that's the whole theme that we embrace here on the podcast, which is the adults can read to their inner child right
yeah,
through these books, soothe who they are today, and of course, recommend it to the kids in their lives.
yeah,
But it did come across to me as a book that a lot of adults might choose to learn from too.
yeah,
So let's talk about the illustrations and the format. The book
yeah.
is beautiful. As I mentioned, it's so
Thank
you
you.
can feel Odin's energy, you can feel
Yes.
his happiness, you can see the action. Tell me about, how you felt the illustrations brought the story to life. And then I want to talk about the format, which is something you did with the words that I think just increases in.
Yeah, definitely. So, oh my goodness, my illustrator, I'm so lucky I found her. She's incredible. When I first was kind of picturing things in my head for the book, it was hard for me because I don't draw. So hard for me to like articulate exactly what I was thinking or like how I felt about things. But I feel like her and I just have the same mindset on this whole project because she would pull things together in ways that either I didn't think to or in ways that were like so spot on to what I envisioned that yeah, there's multiple times I definitely cried. I'm a big crier. So I definitely got emotional about just like how great everything was and how great everything kind of came together. But I think that she hit the nail on the head was just how to capture the emotion and just like different dimensions within a picture book that sometimes I don't know if they kind of get lost, but I think she did a really, really good job at just making sure that everything that words match pictures and just everything was just like full, like just a fully rounded experience within this book for sure.
Yeah, it definitely was. And as I mentioned, I loved what you did with the format. So,
Yeah.
they're the way that the words are spread out, they're kind of in different locations across the pages, which shows that kind of happy movement. But you have certain
Yeah.
words that are kind of bigger and in
Yeah.
color that really jump out, which I loved. Tell me about that and why you made that choice.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of the illustrator's idea, but it also was kind of something that I was hoping to get more textually out of. I chose words specifically that kind of fit more of like the theme of the book that I was kind of going for, but then also two words that I think could spark conversation for classrooms. So a lot of the words are, either bigger words that kids may not know yet. So that was something that I wanted to kind of discuss a little bit and, bring more attention to for educators to use in their classroom, and then also too at the same time, just words that I think kind of carry the message throughout the book. So it kind of gives more talking points for sure.
Yeah, and I think if educators and librarians are listening right now, and I know
Mm-hmm.
they are,
Yeah.
their mind, they're thinking, yes, okay, I've got a book that is a book just to enjoy, a book to adore from the picture's point of view, then a book to learn from, right? But then also with those bolded words, you've put opportunities into the caregiver's hands who are sharing this book with kids to extend it. So maybe those words are just talking points as they're reading the book.
Yeah.
Maybe, they offer a chance for older students who are watching, like those words jump out, as you mentioned, they're really connected to the theme. And that's always something we're trying to teach in education, right? And to come from.
Mm-hmm.
So this book, I think with that format, you offer a chance for readers to engage more because they jump out. And then we can think about why they jump out. You're highlighting those kind of issues and emotions you want to, but then it
Yeah.
just naturally invites readers to just talk about them because they are bigger and they're
Mm-hmm.
out there. And I just thought it fits so well with the movement that you can feel on the page, which really is a pretty hard thing to do. I mean, your book is about
Yeah.
the hands and you can imagine his excitement, but you literally can feel it and see it on
Yeah.
the page. So together, you two have done something pretty amazing.
No, thank you. Yeah. No, I definitely feel the same way about how just, I mean, yeah, it was more so her idea than anything. I don't want to take credit from Eleanor. She's phenomenal. I'm so lucky I found her. But yeah, she has a knack for this, and she definitely helps come up with the ways to put that emotion behind things. And there's even a couple of scenes where he's sad, and you can tell that he's sad because the sky's a little bit darker. There's rain clouds, just things that I wouldn't have thought to put in just because that's not how my brain works, but definitely makes the most sense when you look at things from a more picture book perspective than just words on a page.
Yeah, that's the beauty of a picture book. It's an
Yeah,
experience. It is such an
definitely.
experience, and it blends the author's talents with the illustrator's talents, and then the reader just gets to benefit from the
Yeah,
synergy, I guess, of
yeah.
both. Yeah. So what is your hope, right? You are ready to put this book out into the world, to put it into kids' hands and adults' hands.
Yeah.
What are you hoping that they'll walk away with or get out of in the process of just sharing this with the world?
Yeah, so I mean, that was kind of my whole intent was just share this with the world. Like it's more of a passion project than anything. But for me, it was just kind of a message that I think anybody could benefit from hearing. And then just kind of learning to celebrate people's differences. I think that's a beautiful thing. And it's a thing that even as an adult, I feel like we often kind of struggle with is celebrating our own differences. And I hope that that's something that people take away is just kind of everyone's unique, everybody's different, and that's what the beauty of everybody. So definitely celebrate those little things that you might think make you different or stand out because you know the right people who want to be your friend and want to be around you, those are why they're here for you. So
Yeah. Yeah. And we find each other, right? We end
yeah,
up finding our way to
yeah,
each other. If we stay who we are and we're proud of it and okay with it, we
yeah,
find our people, which is another really nice message. So I know this was your
yeah,
first book, so your first passion project come to life.
yes.
Any plans, any future books, any future ideas? You give us a sneak peek of what we might see in the future?
Yeah, so I mean, part of my book, you see a little dog walking through everything. That's my dog Fedorov. It's based off of my
Oh,
actual pup.
oh, I
Yeah, so
love
I wanted,
that.
yeah, he's my pride and joy. I love that boy so much. So I wanted to keep him throughout the book. And in future books, you'll be seeing my dog popping around. But yeah, I definitely think that there's more to discuss, especially in the world of disabilities, and kind of coming out with more books within that. So I'm kind of on like this brain wavelengths of coming up with more books within the autism community, but then also just other disabilities too. I think it's a really positive thing to bring more awareness to a couple of these things and kind of celebrate more differences and more things that make people unique. So hopefully that's kind of where I carry some of my themes in my book. Who knows? Maybe I'll come up with like a second set of things and maybe it might just focus on my little dog Fedorov, but we'll see kind of what happens with everything. But I definitely will not stop writing. I mean, I've been writing for 20 years now, I feel like. So I definitely, that's not going to stop anytime soon.
Oh, good. Good. And the world needs more books like this. We really,
Yeah.
really do. Thankfully, the publishing industry is kind of pushing some of the old boundaries that they used to have. And we need books where kids can celebrate all sorts of dimensions of who they are. And then the adults, as we mentioned, could likely learn in the process.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the main reason why I chose to go with self-publishing versus more traditional publishing, just because I knew with traditional publishing there could be a lot of trial and error and rejection with not getting my book out. And for me, at the end of the day, I think it was just more so I wanted this message to be heard more than anything. So for me, it was if I self-publish, I at least have that chance and that voice and that platform to make sure that this book kind of makes it to whoever wants to read it. So for me, I think that was the more important part, was just getting this book out first. Being a quote unquote published author and having like this giant following, I think it was just more so I want this message to be heard.
Yeah. Yeah. And as someone who reads a lot of books, some
Mm-hmm.
self-published, some traditionally published, I think someone looking at your book wouldn't even know, right? It's not like
Yeah.
this is a picture book I made and here it is. This is something that you would expect to find from those top publishers. So I think you've done a beautiful job with
Thank
the
you.
words, with the illustrations, putting it together with your message. I'm glad you're not going to keep writing because I can envision for you the books that might
Yeah.
come and then that many readers who will get to see themselves and learn from it. So I'm so glad you didn't wait, right? I love
Yeah.
that. Just
Yeah.
you want them to have the message, and so you just figured out a way to do it, and here
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah. I mean, it did take me a second to gain that courage. Because
Mhm.
like I said, this book basically lived in the notes app on my phone for about 3 years. And then I met another self-published author in St. Clair Shores, where I live in Metro Detroit. So it was really cool to connect with her, and she gave me so much feedback and just like help and guidance. Lindsay, if you're listening, thank you. I can't thank you enough for everything you've done to get me to where I'm at right now with this book, and I'm excited to continue our journey together because it's been great so far.
Wonderful. Well, where can people find you? Find out more about you, your books, whether
Yeah,
I know you mentioned before we called, you're open to school visits, all the things
yeah,
that come with that first book. So share all the places we can find you.
yeah. So as of right now, if you go to marisaquinn.com, that's my website. So you can find my book there. The pre-order is opening, or it should actually be open by the time this podcast drops, which is super exciting. So pre-order will be there. And then from there, there's a lot of independent bookstores in Metro Detroit who are already showing interest in my book being carried there. And then my hope is to kind of expand outward. I already have a couple places in Ohio. Oregon and Texas that I've been chatting with to get my book out to toy stores and bookstores. But on my website too, there will be a tab that just says all the places that currently carry my book. And it'll definitely also be on Amazon. That's another place too.
Okay. And how about social media? Where can they find you there?
Oh yes, yeah. You can find me on Instagram at Marisa Quinn Wright. And then you can also find me on Facebook at MQ Wright.
Okay. And one of the things I've learned across this podcast is that listeners and readers have power, right, to help put new books into the world. So if you're listening, go to your local indie. Tell them you want to have the chance to see this book on the shelves or to be able to purchase it so that all the bookstores, no matter where they're listening, kind of know. And that's something that we can do for our local libraries too. You can go to your local library website and, maybe hidden in some links, but there is a place where you can request your library to carry books. And so this could be a great way to support you too, if listeners could head to their library or their local indie, ask for the title, and just slowly see it grow across the way.
Yeah. And that was the other thing too. Obviously, libraries. I have a couple of libraries in the area that are interested. And then I do have a Library of Congress number, so I can be in libraries for sure that way. And then I have a contact us form. And if you want to fill that out and put down like, hey, I live in so-and-so, these type of stores would be so cool for you to reach out to. I love hearing that type of stuff. Give me all the places to kind of expand, give me places to figure out, where to also look for to put my books and just kind of touch and expand on more people. That's, kind of more of what I'm here for, is just making sure that this book gets heard, because I think it's a super positive message.
Yeah, I do too. So I will put all of the links in the show notes of the episode so everyone knows where to find you and can help you spread your book love.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you so much, Marisa, for coming onto the podcast. I loved the book. I can't wait for others to get that book into their hands as well. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come onto your first podcast. I feel so honored.
No, this has been such a nice, positive experience. Definitely, if you ever want to have me back, I will gladly come back.
Absolutely. You keep writing, get the next one going, and then we'll just put it on the calendar.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. And thanks everyone for listening. And I'll see you next week inside a new episode. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Kid Lit Love podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to listen to my other podcast called Get Literate. It's a podcast that explores all things books and reading, notebooks and writing, and everything in between to build a life you love. One more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a bookish friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish community of kid lit love. Thanks for listening.